The Tao of Self-Confidence, Episode 183.
Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women finding their inner journey to self-confidence 5 days a week. Get your free audiobook by visiting thetaoofselfconfidence.com.
Well, hello friend. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. I'm your host today, Sheena Yap Chan, and today I have a phenomenal lady. I know in the last episode I had the interview of, Raven, who's the co-founder of Tomboy Tarts, but here's another lady who's the other co-founder of Tomboy Tarts, and she's going to share her tips and her story on self-confidence. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Persis Shanker. Persis, how are you today? Maybe you can fill in a little bit more about yourself to our listeners.
Yes, hi, Sheena. So happy to have me on the show. I'm really happy that, to discover your podcast. I really think that what you're doing for Asian women, kind of bringing an awareness to the cause is really something that's so empowering. And, I just love to see my fellow Asian sisters, just being part of that voice. I'm very, very honored to be here today. So a little bit about myself. My name is Persis. I'm actually a Malaysian, but I was educated in Singapore, and towards my college days, I actually spent about 8 years in the United States, specifically in the Midwest. So I am partly Malaysian, partly Singaporean, but my soul is American, so it's so weird. But I am South Asian by ethnicity. And, as I mentioned earlier on, I think I can give Mindy Kaling and Aziz Ansari a run for their money. And I actually started out as a producer in Singapore when I came back to this region from the US in 2002. And I spent like 15 years being a producer. And then I realized I wanted to do something else that reflected my personality. So while I still kept the day job, and I won't go into detail about it here, Raven and myself, who were ex-colleagues at a TV station, decided to just get together and come up with Tomboy Tarts, which we felt was a little bit, about our personalities, and we, a little bit about our interests, how we view the world and how we rock our worlds, not just in style, fashion, and, all the, the geek stuff that we both like, but we also were funny women who wanted to find an outlet to express our humor, our sense of humor, and our sense of perspective of the world. And also just to, spread the classic tomboy message that, you can be a woman, but you don't necessarily have to strap yourself to what society thinks you should, act, So that's kind of a little bit about me and how we started Tomboy Tarts.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And Raven, what would be your favorite self-confidence quote?
Yeah, that's a good one. I am a little bit of a rock and roll chick, and so I've always been a rebellious person. My favorite quote would be from a musician called Joan Jett. I'm sure you know who she is. And it's something where she goes like, I figured out it was a social thing, what women were allowed to do. At a very young age, I decided I was not going to follow women's rules. So I think this is the perfect quote for me and how I've always lived my life. I've always, not really so much of a deviant, but, I always thought that as a woman, sometimes it's hard to follow the rules because especially when you have certain interests or you look at the world in a different way. And especially like for me, I had, I was brought up in a Malaysian community, but I was also exposed to the modern progressive Singapore society, plus, and then also, being taken out of that and then thrown into the US, which is like this huge cultural melting pot with so many different perspectives. You just got to find your home where you go, and you just got to find ways of doing things that kind of work for you. And I think that's why that quote just, it's just something I feel that I'm really close to. I feel very connected to that quote.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And I love how you said, you're not going to follow what other people want you to do. You're going out there and be, the person that you want to be your authentic self and live life according to your terms. And, in your own words, how would you define self-confidence?
I think for me, self-confidence is about being very real with yourself. As you mentioned, you have to be authentic within whatever situation you've been put in. And I also think that self-confidence, for the sake of it, to look, like you've really got everything together, and you've put yourself together in terms of your looks and stuff, is kind of meaningless. Because if you can't be real and truthful to yourself, kind of like accepting all the flaws and the imperfections, I think it's very hard for you to be a compassionate and authentic person with others. Because, if you constantly try to cover up your flaws, it kind of makes you feel insecure. I don't know about others, but I think for me, that was what has been my life experience. Like when I would try to hide my imperfections, when I was younger, it actually added to my insecurities. It didn't actually make me confident at all when I hid things from people, and when I, didn't open up a more vulnerable side to myself.
And I agree with you on that because, our flaws is what makes us, unique, special, and beautiful. And we have to accept them and, be proud of them because it's part of us, right? We have to love ourselves, flaws and all. And, I love that definition you mentioned. And what was your life like before your discovery of self-confidence?
I was actually a very geeky, nerdy girl. I don't know if you ever saw that sitcom Family Matters. There was a guy called Steve Urkel. And if there was anyone who was like I could relate to, I think Steve Urkel would have been like the it character. I was a bit of a nerd and a geek. I had like Coke glasses, and I still wear Coke glasses, to be honest. But I was always somehow I was lucky in the sense that I grew up in Asia, because at the time that I was growing up, there was not a lot of bullying. And so people kind of were more gracious back in my generation, like late 80s, 90s. So people didn't really, I was lucky in the sense that I wasn't bullied for the fact that I was a nerd, I wasn't good looking, I was like the Indian dark girl, I mean, there's all these reasons that I could have been bullied, but I wasn't. And so what happened was I found my voice in being a funny person. So I used to crack a lot of jokes in class, and I think that was why I cracked jokes, because I think although people outside kind of accepted me, I think inside I was still very insecure as a kid. And so I used comedy as an outlet, comedy and creativity. I was quite good at art. So I used the two to kind of, build my self-confidence. So it's always been about my abilities. My self-confidence was first built on what I could do, or, if people thought my jokes were funny, that was what, like my thing. That was how I built my confidence. Yeah, that's basically how I did it. Like, and I mentioned something about my writing voice. That's part of the comedy. It's like I used to write a lot of comedy. I used to envision a lot of funny things. It's just crazy. I used to come up with stupid, things in school, play pranks and jokes. I think how I kind of wanted to build my self-confidence.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And, what was that point in your life when you realized, you can go out there and start, living your own life, start doing things like creating the podcast? What were those times in your life? Your aha moments?
So aha moments was like, I think the first time, I think was my early 30s. I had a, really low point in my life. And I really had to think about how I was trying to love myself outside of what I could do. So yeah, everybody accepts me because I'm a creative person. I was funny, I was this and that and all that stuff on the outside. But I think somewhere along the way, I realized that I was so busy creating this whole big image about myself, what I could do on the outside, that I kind of forgot that there was an inside too that I, needed to take care of. And so I kind of had to, for a few years, kind of go into myself, really look at myself and go like, whoa, there's lots of gaps in here. So where did those come from? So I had to really learn how to get to know myself again. So I had to love myself again. I had to figure out why I had put myself in these situations where I was not respected or taken for granted. And I had to put my emotional needs first and gain kind of like a new perspective on life. And I actually journaled a lot during that time. So yeah, that was the first one. The second aha moment was, of course, when my grand passed away a few years back, and I realized like how short life was, and I began to realize that I it's YOLO, and you have to make each day count. So that kind of like put me on the fast track to create Tomboy Tarts, put me on the fast track to really go out there and really take a bite out of life's apple. I hadn't done that before. I used to be a bit of a procrastinator, used to be a bit of a lazy little, indulgent little creative person that I was. But I think kind of, I know it sounds morbid, but actually death does teach you a really big lesson. It really teaches you to, do what you can within this short space of time. And that's why you see Tomboy Tarts, this huge entity now, And I think that's, for me personally, what, got me here, got me to this point.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And, it's true. Sometimes, a death from someone close to you can really change your perspective on life and realize life is too short. Go out there and live your life and, don't worry about what other people think. And,
Yes.
because of these aha moments, what's your life been like now?
I would say it's been amazing. I think, seeing that probably my grand is somewhere up there watching me now. But I think it's just been amazing. I've done so many things that I never really I just didn't think that. I put it in the back burner. I was a bit of a procrastinator. So I just decided that, I'm going to do this. I'm going to travel to different places. I'm going to push my boundaries physically, emotionally, and mentally. I also, I did my first glacier climb in Iceland. I would never have thought about doing that before. But then, I put myself out there. I put myself out there for the podcast. I was a bit of a shy person to tell people, oh, I can do this. I can be a bit of a, thespian, you want to call that. And so I think all this kind of really made me more self-confident. It was a long journey. But I look at it as sort of like a house where I build it brick by brick. So, that kind of, it's just been amazing. It's just been amazing what I've been able to do for the last, I think, decade.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And it's great that you're going out there pushing your limits, pushing your boundaries, because in reality, life is limitless. We have everything within us to go out there and do our thing. So, Persis, to the woman who's listening to your episode, she may be in her own journey of self-confidence. What would be that one tip you would give to her?
Wow, just one? I have a lot. Okay, so anyway, I mean, like I was saying, from my own experience, my observations, for me personally, I'm happy to see that women are actually making huge leaps in the last, decade, 2 decades in empowering themselves. But I think what I would like to see is, a more conscious effort to all, to come together and raise each other up into a healthy place where we, really kind of help each other move ourselves down this pipeline to a better place where we don't have to prove anything to any gender, even to ourselves. And I think, we need to have that freedom to roll up our sleeves and really just, getting down to brass tacks, just working our way through, what we call our own success. I think in terms of specific advice, I would say start doing inner work first. Explore your strengths, explore your weaknesses. You can do it through, for me, it was through journaling. For others, it could be through sports or something that they're good at doing. Just keep doing it. Just keep, empowering yourself that way, and accept yourself even through the failures and the successes. And I guess also be proactive. Find ways to conquer your immediate fears and insecurities, since everything's in your mind anyway. Really, nobody's out to get you except yourself. And also kind of seek opportunities. That's kind of what I did. Like when I started moving up my career ladder, I found ways to go over and beyond what I was expected to do. I went and volunteered with Unifem, volunteer with a soup kitchen. Love yourself, but also, give yourself back to the community wherever you can. Because I think For me, I always, and I know this is cliche, but it's true. The moment you do things for other people, for your community, you actually feel very happy. You feel really joyful, and I think that kind of feeling is something that money cannot buy. And I think the last tip I would say to anyone out there, in order to build your self confidence, and I found that this is really something that works for me. Always put yourself in an uncomfortable situation.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing all those tips. And I like that last one you mentioned, putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, because that's really how you can build confidence to a whole new level. So
Yeah.
So Persis, if our listeners wanted to get to know a little bit more about you and what you do, and wanted to listen to the podcast, is there any links or social media profiles we can connect with?
Sure. I don't know if Raven shared it earlier on, but I can share it again. You can find our podcast on iTunes and Stitcher. It's Tomboy Tirade, not tirade or tirade. It's our own unique way of pronouncing it. That's spelled Tomboy Tirade. You can also find us, Tomboy Tarts, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, and Pinterest. And all you have to do is type Tomboy Tarts.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And to our listeners, if you want to connect with Persis, you can also head on over to thetaoselfconfidence.com and search for Persis's name. Her show notes will pop up along with everything else we talked about. And I just want to thank Persis for taking the time to share her story with us. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Sheena. Nice talking to you.
Same here. And to our listeners, be on the lookout for another new episode of another amazing woman's journey to self-confidence. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.
Thank you for tuning in to another amazing episode of The Tao of Self-Confidence. Subscribe to The Tao of Self-Confidence on iTunes and Stitcher to hear more stories of amazing women finding their inner journey to self-confidence.